potato chip processing, corn processing, and warehousing. So we'll have Mike Stevens first talk about the UTC FCC conversion unit, and just kind of explain some of the things that go on. In a conversion unit, we've got maintenance work, quality assurance work, sanitation work, and administration slash support work. There are people in the group doing some or all of those things to some degree. We might be doing some minor PM under the maintenance portion, where in most plants that PM work might be relegated to a maintenance function. We're saying in Casa Grande that some of the minor maintenance work might be done by the potato chip conversion group, repairing their machines instead of calling the maintenance man. Some quality assurance work. It's our contention that in order to build this ownership and an adherence to quality, that people should buy into that. We feel that that is best done by line personnel, as opposed to having a policeman outside of the group, a quality control group telling us we got to make good quality. Why not build that into the conversion unit? So we said that there's some quality assurance testing, quality assurance work that can be done by the conversion unit. The same thing with sanitation, and the same with administration and support. Under administration, we might have things like scheduling, having the group schedule its activities, as opposed to having a supervisor come out and tell you, you've got to make 3,000 cases today. The unit would schedule its activities to assure that they meet whatever goal they decide upon at the beginning of the day. Of course, they would have a information on the requirements. They would know that sales needs 10,000 cases in 3 shifts. So they would then schedule their activities to support that goal. And then under support, there are various things that come under support. There might be some group training. There might be some group assessment work that's done under the support area. There also is some information processing, shift reports, things like that, that's done by the group. So we'll kind of let Mike come up and get into explaining the universal tortilla chip and Frito-Lay.
Just to give you a brief look at the future state, but I do welcome any questions, because your questions may help us find some answers that we're looking for, and the exchange of information here is one of our objectives. The overview that I'll cover will be over the 2 production units, or as Wally changed the terminology, it's conversion units is what we'll be talking about. And of these 2, we have the corn products conversion unit and the potato chip conversion unit. What we have here is a look at the structure of the potato chip conversion unit. Inside your square here is all the activities that it takes to make a potato chip. The key purpose of this group is to make the highest quality potato chip at the lowest cost. That's where their primary focus is. What we have is 2 shifts, shift A and shift B, and basically 4 teams. Broken out into 4 teams because of the size of people. We have approximately 12 to 16 people in the 2 teams here. The middle oval here is your coordination and support team. That is a group made up of non-exempt and exempt. Their purpose is to support the other teams for such things like production scheduling, how many pounds, sanitation coordinating, and facilitating methods. By doing that, that allows your teams to focus primarily on making the potato chip. Any questions on potato chips?
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
In terms of the coordination and support group,
Yes.
does that specifically go across both of the conversion groups?
combination within the support group, a lot of the functions should be carried on first shift, because that's where you'll have most of the interfacing with the other groups.
Mike?
Excuse me,
Go ahead, Gary.
not to jump ahead, but how does the corn products support group and the PC support group interface with the warehousing function and potential support group that may have to coordinate the overall activities, flows, et cetera?
One person in this group may be your warehouse representative.
Okay.
And would coordinate that along with any exams. That might be a possible subgroup, or two people here coordinating scheduling with the warehousing piece. Most of that would take place on first as far as the scheduling. And then on second, you still may have within inside this group a warehouse interface person coordinate that, as well as maintenance and some of the other groups. But most of those have.
Mike, within the team, FCCB, you know, you've talked about having just basically one or two levels of people who perform all the functions in that team. Did people float between the teams, or is that team one unit?
They will flow. You will start out, let's take one, you said FCCB.
Right.
You will have a group of people in there converting corn into finished product. At one point in time, to improve on their skill level, they may move to UTC.
As a regular basis, though, they're held together by that block.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Self-contained. Now then, there would be a difference then between corn and potato chips, and in potato chips, you'll have two sets of teams working on the same process.
Yes.
What we're trying to do, Dave, is to make people as multifunctional as possible. We want to try to do as much cross-training as possible. Now, we know that during the startup, it's going to be impossible to come float people around and rotate them around. But again, we're talking about future state design. What we ultimately move to is having people who are cross-trained to do other jobs. If we had, for some reason, to expand shifts in FCP, we've got one more shift available, we could take some people out of the UTC group and run an FCC prior. And that's kind of the ultimate. It's really not different in what we do in many plants where we cross-train people. We're just saying, though, for the purpose of ownership and belonging, those people belong to FCC conversion unit B. And that's where most of their activities will occur. But we will give them opportunities to train in UTC at some point in time. That makes them more valuable to us and certainly helps them to get a little more exposure to the whole plant.
I guess my question was around, this may be going later on too, but from what I've heard, just brief things from it so far, I see the corn products as having a unit which takes it right through the system, but in potato chips we split it at the wall. We have one team here and one team here, which seems to be a little different than some of the theoretically we've talked about, where one team takes it all the way through.
Processing packaging
Right.
as opposed to here where we're not split out processing packaging.
That was primarily the size.
Size.
Yeah, and the team, all your team, let's go back to potato chips here.
Is that a function that might change with automatic case pack?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it would.
very well fit.
Yeah. But this allows that size group to focus on the processing piece, and then the other to focus on the packaging group, whereas the other one, they'll focus on the entire.
Yeah, we're not saying that those people will not see packaging. We will work out a system so they cycle through packaging. They also will be meeting as a unit, as a potato chip conversion unit, to discuss common problems. So there won't be this separation of, well, we're packaging, we're processing. There will be ongoing meetings between the groups.
That's what I heard your concern was.
Yeah.
Building that
Yeah.
wall.
You seem to have gone to great lengths to tear it down.
Tear it down. That was just a natural bounding place because of the size.
Okay.
The original units had the FCC split off the UTC. What were the primary criteria for population?
We looked at, we backed up from future state and said startup is one shift of FCC and the amount of people. And that would be enough for one group. FCC and UTC or corn products, size-wise, that's a, we felt like that can be handled as one group. And then just by adding another shift of FCC did not enlarge it to the four shift. We felt like we needed to split it off, just break it up. So we just kept it in that
So
table.
the goal of that group will be to produce corn products, the highest quality at the lowest cost, as opposed to producing Fritos or UTC.
But you do
There's a
have,
little bit of conflict there about how you're gonna keep the goals apart group to group.
right, but within that, this conversion unit, you do have a team, this team A for FCC, and their purpose will be to make a Frito, a high-quality Frito at the lowest cost.
One of the things if I could add, that we considered there, we kind of kicked around, was that up until the corn washer, there's a commonness in everything that's done in either Fritos or UTC. It's receiving, it's cooking, it's stoking.
The different flow streams, but, certainly common activities within the different flow streams.
Actually, the same operator is what it broke down to. Receiving would be done by an individual, the task being receiving raw corn. The cooking, or the cleaning and the cooking, and the soaking, all being controlled by an operator, a single individual. So it became the normal thing to have these all or both corn products come into one group.
Gentlemen,
What's the size of that unit as compared to the
Taking into consideration, the support tasks that would be done on the ship, as well as the maintenance, approximately 12. And what we did to even the groups out, we had UTC at 16 and FCC at 8, and to make the group size about the same, 12 and 12. 12 for UTC, 12 for FCC.
But the unit that would have about 60 people plus a kid, is that correct?
That includes the support. That includes the people that would be doing the PM, sanitation. Are you concerned about the size of the operation to manage?
I'm just thinking it might be getting the unit itself.
Yeah. And we talked through that. We're trying to focus on that future state that people learn and execute, that they will make the product.
If FCC should go to 3 shifts, then you have to do 16, then it becomes time to do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of on the edge now.
Oh, yeah, I shared your concerns. It's right there.
Mike, if you have one operator receiving corn and another single operator cooking for both Fritos and UTC, which team is that individual going to belong to?
Good question. They're going to have to be involved with both the groups. They're going to have to participate with the two, and we'll try to rotate them out, and so they're not, especially from the logistics. Corn cook is up in the attic, so to speak, up there off by himself, so he is going to need to rotate. Whereas traditionally you have a corn cook, and just stay there and cook corn. You can't do that. You cook some and then go come down and go run the other piece of equipment. But because of that flow, you will have to be part of and interact with both the teams.
It's not a real clean answer, and the alternative isn't clean either, as far as having somebody or 2 people up there, or somebody that is still servicing 2 groups. We thought that probably the best way to do that was to have 1 or 2 shifts where that person is a member of the UTC
two and probably one shift, the remaining shift, where he's a member of the Fritos team. There still has to be a lot of coordination and discussion between him and the team he's not a part of. But we're going to divide that up in that way. Maybe on two shifts, the guy's a main member of the UTC, and on the third shift of the FCC. And that would be rotated.
This is one area we're not real comfortable with, because you do have the one person up there and they contribute to what goes on.
Okay.
Contribute a lot to one group.
That's an interesting dilemma, and yet you resolved it in potato chips. The manpower thing, and it's terrible, but it smacks of a conventional plant, but because you do have receipt of corn and cooking and soaking of corn that could take place for both products by one guy who needs to have a home team, the opportunity exists to consider at least having a corn conversion A team that goes from some point of receipt of corn to some point of processing of corn, and a B team that is packaging all-inclusive. Again, we're getting, I know, it's terrible that's conventional.
Divided front and back.
Dividing front and back because of the similarity of technology and the responsibility of the individuals in terms of what they can do. PMOs on packaging machines. A packaging machine is a packaging machine is a packaging machine. Why couldn't a guy handle a packaging machine in Fritos as well as Doritos? It's food for thought, and the guy gets a home team.
It is, because it came up in our meeting yesterday morning that we try to stay away from that traditional thinking so hard that as new members have come into our group, they have pulled out, they've come up with some good ideas for us to go back and reconsider the thought process. So from a natural.
How does the total number of people that we end up with here, including the support group, compare with how we would crew a standard operation with the same size fryers? In other words, use the standard cost basis for the direct areas and crew unloading, receiving like we normally would. How's that compare?
Our first cut is higher because we allowed 14% startup for training and turnover in there. That's starting to plan out. The future state, there will be more in the direct area and less in the indirect area. So one of our other dilemmas is the cost. How do we look at that direct cost? Because we're pulling in those support groups, and where maybe standard crewing was 3 for an FCC line, we may run with 5, 6, and take care of our own maintenance, quality assurance, sanitation. So
That's a part of, kind of what you guys have been struggling with. How do you adjust the accounting system and the budgeting process for this kind of setup? Because we, as Mike was saying, we're doing a lot of indirect work with the so-called direct people. And we will end up with more direct operators under a traditional setting.
Will there be enough left indirect people to more than offset the
yes,
yeah.
and that's one of our
Yeah.
objectives, is that labor cost per 1,000 pounds is lower than
It
any
would be a
other.
fairly simple adjustment. Just combine a few accounts.
Or independent plant standards.
Yeah.
People
What,
like those.
what we came up with was less total people to operate the plant.
That's the only way to do it.
The team for a conversion unit, you would have a general manager with the responsibility of the baked potato chips, the entire process. Something similar to a staff 2 in a traditional plant, but more of the responsibilities that a staff 1 would have, from back to front, interface with
that would run, for example, corn conversion. And we're saying that in that unit, we would want to have, ideally, people who have those skills. Engineering, maintenance, operations, the guy would have certain skills that would assist us in having the technical expertise right within the team. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to hire a plant maintenance manager and put him in the team to make that run. But there would be one person, hopefully, who would have those skills and would bring that talent to the team. The same with the technical base. We would want somebody who's knowledgeable about
How to make a product.
the product. So we're saying these are just overall job, this is an overall job description or criteria that we'd like to have within the team. One guy may have 3 talents, another guy may only have 2 of those.
So these manager types, or these technicians?
These are managers. These are managers.
Are these individuals on shift with the team?
No. They may work a shift, second or third, whatever the requirements were. But no, normally no.
We would propose that the operation be run essentially from first shift. In our future state, and if we're able to, and we think we will be able to meet our objective, that is to train the employees so that they can run the operation and make the processing and operational kinds of decisions that are traditionally made by a line supervisor. Then this group can operate from first shift, go on shift as necessary to bring technical expertise or to bring assistance to the second or third shift team as they need it. But again, it's not different from what we do in a lot of traditional plants. There have been many times when we've had shifts unmanned. We have receiving people who work pretty much unsupervised, or warehousing people who work unsupervised. We have this going on in lots of plants, and we don't see this being any different.
So this would be the entire management structure for that unit?
That's exactly right.
4 people.
I've got a question. Are you going to be folding any of what was traditionally the plant services or the plant controller clerical functions into this team? In other words, are they going to be measuring their own inventory disappearance, and that's what will be reported through the accounting system, or is that going to be?
They will do some of the accounting part as far as measuring their performance. Actual inventories, physical inventories, some, but still have the administration plant services group also giving them information, yes.
It would generate the 2103, 172 weekly reports would be generated by the administrative group and feed that information back to the conversion unit.
A lot of the conversion units will be short time, shift to shift, day to day total, that they'll be figuring on an ongoing basis. Some weekly, as far as the support, that'll still come.
Well, what's the, having no exempt on second or third shift in your future state is probably one of the, sounds on the first cut, one of the more controversial. What's Dennis's?
It was one of my concerns also, because I was imagining that this third shift was out there for months and months and never saw anyone, but the structure is such that these teams would rotate.
I can see that, but I'm just curious what the
Yeah,
initial reaction is.
Yeah, the initial reaction from traditional thinkers.
Just like that.
Dennis loved it.
That's heresy.
Oh, he loved it. He loved it. You say what?
Our warehouse managers in Salt Lake City were doing a test out of the ASRS computer system today. So Vito has been on the team working this up, and he has a pretty good understanding of what has to be done.
What we did was try to set up the warehouse conversion unit using some of the same assumptions that everyone else did for their conversion units, with the number of poundage and the time constraints. And what we were able to do is, in order to complete all the tasks from taking the product from the packaging wall through the warehouse and out the back door after it has, and loading it in the trailers at the back door, we had to stop there because, quite frankly, none of us in the group had the expertise to try to define or determine what it would take to man a delivery team. That would have to be done by someone else who had, the information on that. And at this point, it's still undefined as how that would be handled anyway.
It's getting more defined.
Yeah. That's going to be one of our new committees, Dave. Got to put a group together with Casa Grande and yourself to determine what the delivery system is like.
We came up with, on the individual teams, they're completely balanced. The actual work that would be accomplished on a shift-to-shift basis is in some cases quite different. One example was on shift C, the traditional third shift. We opted to put our variety pack and the 6 people it takes to operate that on that shift, just to get it manned up to the same numeric level as the first and second shift. The reason for that being was because those two first and second shifts would be operating, supporting, or handling product, if you will, for two full production shifts, all products. The third shift, only a single product. So numerically, to get the third shift up to the same level, we picked up variety pack from there.
Now that's a new piece of information for a lot of you. We decided that variety pack didn't naturally fit any place in our plant, simply because we were taking work in process, moving it back into the packaging room, and having it simply put into trays. So we said, well, where should that fit, or where could it fit? And we thought that since the warehouse controls that inventory, they control the materials that go together to make variety pack, let's make it a part of the warehouse conversion unit. And that's kind of been an arbitrary decision on our part. Now it's certainly could change.
14 people that make up each of the individual teams are those tasks would be the normal or the conventional warehousing type tasks, to where you handle the palletizing, the picking, bulk loadout for either roller bed or with our fork trucks, and direct loadout, which we'll have the capability of doing when we weren't using the pick system to do bin loads. Our delivery, our warehousing and delivery support, and here actually all we did was put together numbers for the warehousing part of it. We have seven additional people. These 7 people don't come out of the numbers that we picked up from the individual work groups. Those 7 people, we're looking at 4 clerical types that would handle all the invoicing of product going into the warehouse for storage, or directed completely through the warehouse for direct loadout. It would handle the invoicing for billing for bin loads. It would handle retrieval of product for the pick system. A lot of the clerical work that would be necessary to handle the entire operation as a whole. The additional 3 people we came up with would take the equivalent of 1 man day per shift just to accomplish the maintenance function. At least the maintenance function right now we're looking at although they weren't considered in the total 14 members of each team, we're contemplating using team members to accomplish that maintenance work. And we came up with 3 people for the equivalent of 3 people. We may have 9, or we may have a dozen people that are out there that we would be using various skills that they have, that they're bringing into the team to come up with a total 8-hour workday in each of the shifts to accomplish that. The rest of the support group would be made up of managers. And we're looking at right now, switch over to this other chart and go back to the other one in a second. And again, this is future state, and we're looking at is a general manager for the warehousing group. And then 2 additional warehouse managers. eventually have identical skills. For one of them, he may start out with being extremely competent in the high-tech part of the plant, with all the microprocessors and computer terminals, the electronic equipment that's out there that makes up the warehouse itself. We feel that one of those managers almost had to be, or had to have the skills for that high-tech background to be able to assist each of the work groups as they were needed to provide some amount of training and to act as an advisor to help maintain the operation of the system. Where he would be, where this manager would be the high-tech advisor as a specialty, his counterpart, or the second warehousing manager, he would be the specialist in scheduling. As secondary responsibilities, this one would be tasked with learning as much as possible about the high-tech part, just as he would have to have the responsibility of learning just as much of the scheduling piece. Beyond that, they're both responsible at all times for training, for coordination and interface, not only between the shifts that make up the warehouse group itself, but UTC, PC conversion groups, as well as the engineering and tech services group. They would provide that interface that's needed when they got to a point to where the people in the work groups didn't have the technology involved to troubleshoot down for a problem, or they needed information on poundage coming out of one or more of the conversion groups for either corn products or PC. One of the things we did come up with up front is that along with, or in addition to the maintenance function that would be looked at as a support to the actual traditional warehousing operation, as it were, in each of the work groups, we would also have people cycling through from the normal warehouse tasks through this central support group for training, for cross training, and for exposure for what is actually involved. It would be a people development tool.
What's the total number of people in the delivery support group, or don't you have that defined?
Well, 12 drivers, managers, one manager
About
really,
So that's what's the delivery team then?
drivers, service product, Arizona, Utah, a little bit of California.
Okay.
We're saying that's outside of the plant door at this point. It's at the rear end of the warehouse.
The plant door is right between delivery support and delivery team.
Now, we have not, since we've not been able to resolve the ownership question with manufacturing and distribution at this point, what we've kind of opted to do is let's take a look at how we can make that delivery team work in the same manner as the rest of the plant. And that's what Dick and I have to work out in terms of what that interface is going to be, how we structure it, and how we cause those people to interact with one another. There's a lot of techniques you can use. You know, you can have delivery support or warehouse team people interfacing with drivers, going out on runs.
That didn't trap somebody on an off shift that they could never see the sunlight.
So every shift they would be able to do variety pack as a rotation.
Yeah, that would be
That's kind of a change of pace too, from
Yeah.
picking and gives you something else to do.
some of the things that we were looking at doing in creating specialties within each group. The hospital, driver was out there staging the trailers. Variety pack, carton sorting. They would become proficient in each, or at each task, and then they would be rotating through that to become at some point a generalist.
So that's a
Which-
specialist general.
That's where you start getting into the generalist specialist concept. to make that attractive, that was where we wound up with the 2 stages per pad. The one line that we put on the bottom was that because of the complexity of the systems, we see the warehouse probably having, some additional people in there because of technical requirements we're going to have for the equipment, so that we would be manned probably a little more traditionally at initial startup, and then try to get to this configuration as soon as possible. Anybody have any questions?
One other question. Number of people that are in the warehousing operation, is that the same number of people that were originally envisioned by the engineering group?
Less.
Less?
The original engineering group came up with 50 people, we came up with 49. And that's building in certain, the training, and as a matter of fact, for the 49, what we did was include training, we included vacation time, and variety pack, which they hadn't looked at before. So actually, if we eliminate the variety pack piece of it that we're going to be doing on this one shift, we've cut it by 7 instead of 1.
I guess the maintenance, it takes care of getting the maintenance work done.
Maintenance, sanitation.
As you look at the warehousing teams, did you consider at all the possibility of not using a warehouse in the conventional sense? In that the conventional sense is that you've always got a day and a half, 2 days worth of finished goods in a warehouse. Have you considered at all a just-in-time potential approach that would reduce your inventory to some ridiculously low number, half a day, 4 hours, 3 hours, and the impact on your team configuration?
Well, with the size of the warehouse and the storage system that we have, we're pretty much locked into thinking along those lines. We don't have the storage facility. We don't have the room there to store any great amount of finished goods. We are going to have, for all practical purposes, almost a direct throughput. It'll be a very small storage of finished goods in the warehouse.
When we run the fryer at 5,000 pounds an hour and UTC at, I think it was 21,
22 to 25.
Beg your pardon?
See, already you're kicking it up, Wally.
42.
42.
No, there is a configuration that shows.
I sat there in that meeting, I said, you mean that fryer can run 5,000 and Wally's gonna run at 4,200?
There's a configuration that shows it at 5,000 plus a UTC at 22 and the FCC at 11. When you're running it at that rate, you've got a day's worth of storage in the warehouse.
We need 4,200 pounds an hour, potato chips, and whatever else we've got. If you turn all the fryers, if you've got a warehouse that's empty, turn all the fryers on, it'll be full in about 36 hours.
That's regular, that's just normal stuff, run normal.
Okay, we're going to have non-produced in that. We're going to have
I'm talking about the
KD.
space that's allocated for produced items, it'll fill up in.
That was based on the 3,200 pound fryer, though.
4,200.
42.
Yeah, I thought all the original numbers that we looked at.
Policies for the conversion units and for the warehouse units. Some of those tasks were brought into the conversion units as being necessary for them to control to make their product. There was a group of tasks which were also necessary, but weren't as necessary, but were still required for those conversion units to perform at the level we considered high performing. Some of those tasks could be grouped in what we considered an engineering or technical services support unit or services unit. This slide is a depiction of how we feel our future state 2 to 3 years out engineering and technical services group will look. This is the answer. The purpose of this group will be to provide technical, training, and engineering support to the conversion units. An additional purpose will be to act as an interface in those areas with the outside world. We've kind of broken those tasks which we feel fall into this area into 3 sub-areas. The first of which is building services. And within this group, typical tasks that we see happening would include the wastewater treatment facility, HVAC, all the building maintenance, that's structural. Our energy program would come from this subgroup. We would maintain and operate all the building support equipment, that's boilers, compressors, those types of things. Our warehouse technology would also fall in this group. Our electronics repairs, and we haven't defined that totally, but it would probably include some board repair and things like that. And our regulatory interface with AIB, EPA, et cetera, et cetera. We see this subgroup being made up of probably 2 exempts and 6 non-exempts. Those non-exempts being qualified in wastewater treatment and in some of the high-tech skills we feel we'll need. Our second group is the training and technical services group. This is we kind of look at this as well, building services are those kinds of things that are necessary for production but aren't really directly related to specific pieces of equipment in the process flow. That kind of thing. The training and technical services are those kinds of support things that are required by the conversion units to optimize quality, training, more efficient people, and operation of equipment, those kinds of things. We see the packaging specialists being in there, our sanitation, possibly, training, that type of thing, our QA, and other technical type services that the conversion units would need to optimize running of their equipment. See possibly 2 exempt people in that group. The third group is what we call the project or process engineering services. These are people that are more closely related in one respect to the conversion equipment in the process, i.e. fryers, continuous cook, sequential sulfur, whatever. They would provide some of the high-tech skills that would be required in those areas. Example might be the modicon or things like that. They would also, within that group, contain the project management for the plant. FIPs, CARs that came back approved or an idea that was generated and maybe needed some engineering work or a little bit more study. CR is written, comes back, and then it's going to be implemented by the plant, or the contractors are going to work through the plant. We're going to administer the project. It would be administered in this area. Also, we saw the storeroom falling in this area, along with a centralized preventive maintenance system, which would be administered from this point. We saw probably 4 groups of people using that system. The purpose of putting it in this group was to maintain some continuity as to how that system worked, keep each of the systems the same, and to provide the administrative services if somebody wanted to change a PM or that type of thing, and to generate schedules to provide to those other units. We saw this unit probably having 2 exempt and 2 non-exempt. The 2 non-exempt probably would have skills in rebuilding and in storeroom management, inventory control, and those types of things, as well as some other basic shop skills.
We define non-exempt. Was that what we typically call a 102, or is that kind of a technician that's
It's
defined non-exempt? What are we calling
we're not sure if it's going to be a salaried person who is not an exempt person, or if it's going to be an hourly person. We're not sure where that's going to wind up.
Because we see them, or core tasks. For example, we would expect that a guy would learn to do some welding, he'd learn to do some mechanical repair, and he would learn to work on a packaging machine and a processing machine. Those might be some of the core things. But the specialist types of activities might be the guy who can weld stainless steel, for example, as opposed to the black iron type of welder. Or a guy who can do some board level repair, repairing electronic circuit boards would be a specialty, or a specialist kind of activity. So we still see the same categories as the PAC group pointed out in its first report. The only difference is the generalist, in a traditional way of speaking, is more of a specialty. He is a mechanic who can do more than one kind of mechanical work, as we see it. But he may, if he becomes a specialist generalist, he may also become an electronics expert, or he may become a welding expert, or he becomes a wastewater treatment expert in developing specialty.
And we really haven't gotten to the point where we've tried to define exactly what we would expect the generalists to be. Got a rough feel for it, or exactly what all of those specialist tasks might be within this group. But, Wally gave a few examples.
These people rotate shoes.
That's come up every time, and I think what we decided as a group is that we would like to see that kind of thing happening because there's advantages for us as far as seeing the people. But just how that happens or whether it happens, I don't think we're ready to say, because the groups themselves may decide that it's not good for them to do that, and have good reasons for it, and they own it, and it may be then better for us not to do that. But at this point, we would like to do that just because we get a chance to see people and talk to them and do those kinds of things that are important too.
I know you guys want to move on. I guess
To do is produce the highest quality product at the lowest cost. And it might mean, that we don't create the ideal social system, Jack, in doing that. And I think that's one of the things that, if we know it up front, then we will plan against it. We will plan against some of the downsides of that. And the major portion of the work we have to do right now is, first of all, identify whether that's something we want to occur. I'm not going to tell you that we're going to make the best of all possible worlds, because in producing high-quality product and low-cost stuff, I may have to come up with a little different variation of the best of all possible worlds. This one may be.
I think the key point is that we recognize that might happen, and we've got a management plan against that.
Yeah, that's right.
We as a group have agreed that if a particular expertise level is required in the plant, if there's any way possible, if it's in any way makes sense, that skill will go into the conversion unit.
Bob, did you consider making those people professional as opposed to non-exempt?
We talked about it.
What were your reasons for deciding against that? Any particular thing?
It may wind up that way.
Yeah, it may very well be that way. And I think
What
that's,
we can see now is that, this is just our best guess at that. We definitely did talk about that, and that may wind up that way. There's just certain things that are normally by law, I think, are done by non-exempt type people, and we feel
from a training standpoint. We began by looking at what we thought 3 years down the road was going to look like and where we wanted to be for training. Backed that up to a year, and then took a look at what we have here is kind of what we feel the startup training design may resemble. Coming in as a new hire, that new hire is going to enter into one or two areas, either core task or support task training. Again, this core task would be a split up of, let's take for instance, potato chip operation. Possibly you would be trained in the peeler prep area to start with. And as this is a dotted line, it's a little difficult to see here. In this process a startup, and as we move into the later time periods, you would learn the B, C, D, E jobs, which make up the total core task. Again, the same thing for the support task, moving into B and C later on, but initially learning one portion of that task, and then even transferring over to a core task at a later date. Looking how that kind of splits off a little bit. All technicians and all conversion units would go through an orientation process, then into some non-technical training. At this point, we would split off into the conversion units separately, so they could start to build a little bit of team rapport at that point. Then into taking a look at what the technical training might look like, splitting that into the conversion unit processing, conversion unit packaging, and then some tasks, the conversion unit support tasks that all members would receive training in, this being the QC standard sanitation receiving. Again, split that off a little bit further. This is kind of honing in on UTC packaging as an example. We would take the packaging specialists as possibly the primary trainers in this area, and in this training role, you would have members from the UTC conversion unit, the engineering technical services group, and also the unit managers that would go through this series of training. Then, as this moves on, again, later dates into the startup, when we bring on FCC and PC, we're going to have enough individuals that have been trained in these areas that we'll be able to transfer these members down into the FCC training mode, which is going to give us kind of a blend in that group of some people that have had some training and some people that are new, and also at this point in time continue with the packaging specialists. Then we've kind of shown at even a later date, looking at potato chips, that hopefully down the road, again, we're going to have an excess of people that have been trained here, be able to transfer them down into the, as old members down into the PC unit, and then bring the new members in. And hopefully, some point down the road, this may be 2-3 years down the road, have the skills within our own group to do our own training. Okay? And that's kind of where we are. Next steps. We need to put together, this is what we're working on today, is kind of a perk chart as far as what our next steps are, some dates and time frames, and the people that we're going to need help from and support to do those things. Yes?
New hire comes in, can you flip back one chart,
Yep.
please? Hire, I'm assigned to the UTC conversion unit.
Right.
You would start by training, obviously, with the orientation on deck. When you got to the technical training, would I be trained specifically in a processing area or a packaging area, or would I do the whole core training at one time?
At startup, you would do only one.
I would, if I were going to be a shooter operator, so you would train me only in the processing area.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then I'd go to work doing that job, and then my training and the other functions would come bit by bit, if that's the
Once you had achieved a proficiency in the job you're currently in.
I think an important point is that if the person is a part of that conversion unit, there's an expectation of continued learning.
Oh, yes.
That if I say I only want to stay in processing, that person's employment opportunities with Frito-Lay then become jeopardized.
Oh, yes. As the track goes on, it's kind of what the first chart shows is that, yes, you're going to learn this A core task, but that, definitely down the road you will be expected to learn all the parts of that core task.
Are you saying, Jim, you have to move?
I am saying that if you're a part of the UTC conversion unit, you are expected to know packaging and processing inside and out.
Okay.
And eventually, PC, I would envision, Andy, would be the same way, that you'll see some of that cross-mingling packaging processing. And I think we've got a great task in doing a real head game on these folks so that we make that something they want to do versus something they resist.
last pack thing. We went to Abilene, I think this is the next thing that happened for 3 days, weekend, and met with Herb and beat out the the organizational design that we presented to the Casa Grande group, and I don't have any slides, but this is the result of that 3 days at Abilene. It was a very crushing session, and we did beat out the framework, which then on the 19th, I think, we met with the Casa Grande core group, presented to them what we thought the framework should look like in terms of future state, task, technology, structure, people. We did not get too much into rewards and information, renewal systems. Some of it was still a little bit blank, but we did present to them the framework that they have picked up now and taken one step further into what we saw today. So the design group did that. The next thing that happened was Wally came in, and Wally and Jim Rich condensed this book into something that looked about like this, and took that to Lyle and Dennis and Chuck North as kind of a session where we said, here's what the framework looks like. We'd like your okay to proceed with this, which was granted. And so that meeting took place then, and they presented the basic framework. That's about where the design committee is today in terms of what they've done, what they've prepared. A little bit of an out session of that was that Jimmy and I have taken the high-performance system framework to the other areas. Taken this basic package, condensed it into a 45-minute presentation, and have presented that to the other manufacturing areas. So it's just kind of for your information. This is what we're doing. This is what a high-performance system looks like. Got a lot of good questions and concerns from the other areas, but what we're doing here is not going unannounced, obviously, throughout the company. We're just spreading that Casa Grande's got something happening here that's different. So we've tried to propagate that message.
One of the things that's interesting as a result of those kinds of presentations is that I know when I'm elsewhere and that there's all kinds of questions and there's all kinds of opinions and there's all kinds of criticism that's coming down the pipe. And there's a lot of boom, 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 people kind of shooting holes in what you got going on because you haven't, the result is not yet seen. And, and just what I've been able to do personally with some of the information that Jack and the other people have provided is to kind of allay some of those fears and say, hey, we're going to measure ourselves by results too.
Well, the other thing I think that's been good is some of these questions have been valid, some of the concerns have been valid, and we've been able to take some of those and say, okay, let's take another look at Casa Grande and reevaluate what we said. So it's been very helpful.
Yeah, one other thing though, just from the Area 3 review, when Jack did it, went over very well. I would also emphasize there was a lot of interest too,
Yes.
not just concerns.
I think that there are a lot of plants, a lot of groups looking at this. Of course, they're looking at a little bit different problem in that they've got a change environment as opposed to a startup environment. They're trying to incorporate some of that into that as well.
During that same week, that Area 3 week, the ER managers for Area 3 met with Bob Hayes, and Barbara Souls also came down and did a presentation on what was going on in Allen Park. And at this point, those guys are a little bit hungry for, hey, I'd like to take some of that back to my plant also.
So that's where we're at for the design group. It's been unofficially, I think, disbanded, and we're spreading out to other groups now. I think the core group has taken the ball and did a very good job of what's the next step. So, Wally, is there anything I've left out?
No, I think of course, the only thing that I want to stress that Jack did talk about was that there are several next steps at this point. We do need to work on identifying all of the potential issues and concerns, and then develop information that will either make those concerns go away or resolve those issues.
We met for the first time to review what had been put together as a pre-start activities that were necessary for the plant. We had on the 19th, I think, met for an hour and a half or so and talked 5 sheets here are macro looks at areas this committee outlined within the points of our star that we felt were necessary for us to put some effort towards to reach our future state. The first thing we tried to define was our future state, which was 6/28 when we're given the equipment. The things that we needed in place, totally or in part on that date, to have a good transition into our startup plan. We then defined where we thought we were in those areas at this point in time today, yesterday, and left us with a gap. Just to go through some of those, we feel that effective that date, our future date, 6/28, we need a stabilization plan 80% in place. We realize there's going to be tuning to that and things have to be done, but we would like to have that stabilization plan to stabilize what we've done 80% in place. And this is just a guess. I mean, it could be more or less. But, other examples, in task and technology, we think that obviously our startup plan has to be complete because it's at that point it takes over. We'd expect it to be complete earlier than that, really. But that needs to be 100% done at that date. Maybe we're 20% there now. We may be even farther along, I don't know. But we do have some work to do there. This is a good area here, the people. I've made an asterisk by those things which we kind of felt needed to happen very quickly. And some guess it when. Quicker would be even better. We need to get on with our AAP. We need to establish our hiring criteria. And all of that has to be done. And we may need some people on board here pretty quick in some areas. So those are two things that really we have to do relatively quickly. This list we haven't at all decided that this list is totally inclusive. There may be other things that need to be added to it. Whatever is added to it, the purpose of what we try to accomplish during the next day or so and report out on tomorrow within the committee that works on this will be to try to break those, add to those if we can think of some, but whatever we wind up with as the final list, try to take a little bit more of a micro look at just what is required to accomplish those things, and try to come out with a product which says these are the things we have to do to accomplish these tasks, and these are some of the people we think may be able to help us with that, and try to get some commitment from those groups. And if they're not a part of this group, then who's going to go out and try to get those people to commit towards accomplishing that? Questions?
Well, I'd like to just suggest something for your consideration. Molly doesn't, I guess I've had some interface with plant managers and staff one types from various plants, and possibly on the second page there, the information decision making, possibly some communication to the external being, the corporation, the other areas, the plants, as to what is happening. For example, one thing I know that plant managers are interested in, and that is, how many managers will you want still to come? How might that impact my plant? And yes, you have a startup date of maybe June, July, but you'll need my manager sooner than that, and I need to get backfills and that sort of thing. So, one, letting the rest of the company know where you are, and secondly, a little more specific people requirements when that is available.
We feel you need the future organizational design to back into what we need as a startup organizational design. We've got the future. We've gone quite a ways towards the startup just because of physical, people are here. Monday, the Casa Grande Planning Group will be meeting in Casa Grande to hammer out what we feel our startup design, organizational design will be. And at that point, I think we'll probably be able to say a lot more about what our needs are going to be.
flesh that out with the equipment availability dates from Rick Calamari. And the other specifics of that task, the training timetable, the staffing timetable, I see now are being picked up by other parts of the committee, and I think that's appropriate because we really didn't have the facilities or the overall understanding and knowledge of what was going on to do those things. The last thing left in that startup timetable area is to develop a new technology testing schedule, which is something we hope to do in this meeting. The second area was to develop a list of potential issues upon startup. We've done that. Hopefully all of you received a copy of those potential issues that we identified from the last meeting and immediately subsequent to the last meeting. What we hope to do, or what we intend to do this meeting, is to identify which of those we need contingency plans for and to begin developing those contingency plans. The third major task area was the development of a turnover acceptance plan. We have completed that and are prepared to give a copy of that to Wally and his staff. If that's what you want to use, great. But we think it would be mutually acceptable to engineering and the plan. And the fourth major area was to design the startup organization and to identify the resources required for that. Again, I think that's been parceled out to other groups, and if that's so, then we will leave that area alone in the future. If not, then we need to talk about what you want from us in that area.
Steve, do you have hard copies of some of those things that you...
I have them, but I didn't bring copies for everybody, but if we can get access to a Xerox machine, we can certainly give everybody a set.